Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is Float Universe. We're doing a part two. The first episode was awesome, so we had to do a second one for you guys. Basically, Float is a float tank operator and conspiracy enthusiast, as well as a part-time spiritual teacher on Instagram. So in the last episode, we covered a few topics including metaphysics of memes, float tanks, and experiences in that realm, addiction to marijuana and persevering that. And we weren't able to get to the Paul McCartney conspiracy theory of his death. So today we're going to dive into that and we'll see where else we go with it. I'm really excited. Thanks for joining today, Float.
My pleasure. I've got a fully loaded gun of Paul McCartney, Billy Shears, Beatles, fun facts, and conspiracy theory, potentially truth, depending on how much you believe in what I'm going to offer you today. I'm going to try to provide overwhelming evidence that Paul McCartney died in 1966 and he was replaced not just by one, but by two. But there's a primary character, Billy Shears, William Shepard, a master musician that has played the character of Paul McCartney longer than Paul McCartney himself was alive, 24 years versus going on 60 years he's playing Paul McCartney.
Wow.
So that's what I'm here to offer today. And wherever that may lead in terms of other roads, it does diverge sometimes in many different directions potentially.
Mm-hmm.
McCartney's one of these things like, this is 66 through 69 is the major plot points of this story. So a lot of people when this was happening didn't have what we have today. Same thing with the moon and the space stuff, which is an ability to go online and do some deep research. So before I get started, I like to say and shout out to all the YouTube people, all the people in forums. I am standing on the shoulder of giants in terms of researchers and videos and documentation that people have spent 60 years looking into this phenomenon. Same thing with the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Before with the moon, it goes up, they land on the moon. You saw it once. There's no VCR. There's no YouTube. That's it. You
Right.
believe it or not, it's kind of laughable today to look at some of the moon stuff. I don't know where you stand on that, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess
with
we'll get
you.
down
I'm
down
with you
that
on
road.
that.
I guess we'll go down that road in a little bit.
Yeah.
So this story starts in 1969, and let's see, I got all kinds of stuff here to get ready to pull up my videos.
I'm excited. I'm excited. So for the listeners on the podcast, they'll be able to tune in on YouTube if they want to see the full video of this, and we'll have it on your page as well as mine, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
And I will also provide all the links to, I will have, you can go on my YouTube page and you can see, I'll have a Paul is Dead links on, how they got like a little thing where you can put all the videos, I forget what they call that. But I've got a whole thing where you can go on my page and you can see all the videos I'm going to be referencing today. Because some of these are long, extended videos we're not going to maybe 15-second clip of.
Cool.
So basically, the story is not Lennon, who died in 1980, by the way. So people who are not deep into the Beatles fandom. By the way, let me just start by saying this kind of ruined. But movies and media in general have kind of been ruined over the past 5-6 years as I learned about Hollywood and conspiracy theories and how they're used against us, and it's propaganda, it's predictive programming. So I used to be big into Hollywood. I used to be big into the music stuff, but it's kind of, the more I research this stuff, the more it ruins it for me. And this has kind of ruined the mythology of the Beatles for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it might offend a lot of people, a lot of the stuff I might get into. The sacred Beatles who had 100 songs written in 1960, did their first album in one day. All these mythological stories you hear about the Beatles. My research ultimately shows that a lot of these things might not even be true. So be warned, if you're a big Beatles fan and you don't know much about the Paul is Dead conspiracy, you're going to learn a lot today. So this story starts in, it takes off in the end of 1969. The first the first Paul is Dead article is in a college newspaper, and let me see here. I'm going to pull up my screen now. We're going to start to get into the media. All right, share. All right, so I got the Paul is Dead. So this is the first one here. Let's see if it pulls up. Give it a second.
And
Okay.
while it's pulling up, I just wanted to mention for I'm a huge Beatles fan, grew up listening to them, and I think that they were revolutionary in bringing spirituality to the West. And so we're tying that into the podcast because it's just so fascinating. And I think a lot of people will find this interesting.
So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So September 17th, 1969, Drake University has the original story. Is Paul McCartney dead? You know, people are starting to, I think this started with Glass Onion, in my personal opinion, doing the research. Glass Onion is the first time, if you're listening to that song, Lennon saying in the song, here's another clue for you all, the walrus is Paul. Okay, what the hell do you mean clue? You know, you're just listening to this music and you don't think much of it, but you hear Lennon talk about this is on the White Album, 1968. So I
Mhm.
think this starts towards the end of 1968. People start to look at the Beatles music like, what is he talking about? There's a clue. So people are going back and they're looking for clues on the album covers and the music. And so this is the first instance where this Paul is dead theory comes out in September 17th, 1969. And then Northern Illinois, they run with this story. They pick it up. They essentially just copy the story.
Hmm.
This gets picked up, and the big one is in, let's see, the narrative really begins October 12th, 1969, with the WKNR radio. It's a college student calling in claiming McCartney has died, and the death was kept secret, but there's clues in the albums. Let me see if I can pull up the videos now. Let's go to my YouTube page. Okay. This is the big story. This is where the shit really hits the fan, and the nation, this is where the thing just hits warp speed when
Hmm.
this hits the news.
According to reports tonight from London,
Can
Queen
you hear that?
Elizabeth is
Yeah.
expected to announce the action herself in a speech in Parliament next Tuesday. There's little likelihood she'll say anything about a big mystery surrounding one of her most famous subjects, Beatle Paul McCartney. A rumor that he is dead has been stoutly denied by several people, including Paul. There was even one report that McCartney was killed 3 years ago in an auto accident and a double put in his place. For a report on how it all got started, here is ABC's Gregory Jackson.
As any parent can testify, the lifestyle of the Beatles has always been somewhat different. And if you believe current rumor, their style of revealing Paul McCartney's alleged death is being carried out with singular taste. Like reading tea leaves, all clues are in the album. For example, in this one, McCartney's guitar, covered with flowers, is resting on a grave.
All right, so we're going to get into that. I'm not going to let him tell the story for us.
Okay.
And that's not the best quality, but so here you've got all this media now where we can go back 60 years later and look at these things. I even have the original broadcast of the radio. We're not going to play that because that's a long thing.
Yeah.
But I've got the original. So it really starts in college radio in October of 1969. It takes off. It takes off in the news, and Paul is dead theory is born.
Hmm.
Now, what they're saying is Paul was. No, let's go back in time. Paul. Okay, the Beatles stopped touring at the end of 1966.
Okay.
I think it's end of August, beginning of September. They just finished their American tour. Their last show is in Candlestick Park in San Francisco. They've been touring now for 4 years. They're exhausted. They play shows where they can't even hear their own instruments. It's so loud. They're basically playing out of tune half the time because it's just screaming and yelling.
Hmm.
These four guys are exhausted, and they said, you know what? Let me turn that down. We are gonna stop touring.
Hmm.
So the Beatles stopped touring in 1966 after touring nonstop for 4 years straight.
Yeah. And
And
I mean, for those people that haven't seen the clips, there's just like thousands and thousands of people screaming. You can't even hear their music a lot of the times for the clips of their concerts, right?
right, so yeah, so they've been touring nonstop for 4 years. The British invasion, again, they can't even hear their own instruments. The crowds are so loud.
Right.
They're just playing to just massive audiences. And they get back, they're exhausted. They stop touring. Okay. So at 1969, the Beatles haven't been seen in public for 3 years.
Hmm.
So that a lot of it is like we have all the information now, but living back at that time, it's seeing through the prism of that time versus being able to look back 60 years and see with, like I said, all this media we have access to, all these things we can look back and say, oh, okay, See the finer details now. So they
Right.
stopped touring. And let's see here. Another thing is, hold on. I gotta hit my share button. Okay, let's go back here. All right. So the story is on September 9th, 9/11. I'm sorry. Yeah. No, September 11th. September 11th, 1966. Paul McCartney, late at night, is leaving EMI Studios and he is getting in his Aston Martin and he's booking out of there. Story goes he picks up a girl on the side of the road, a hitchhiker. He's distracted. There's many different versions of this story, and sometimes the car crash isn't even how they say he died. Some theories say he's sacrificed in a different manner, you know, more occult than this. But now, where I'm getting all this stuff from, and where I'm choosing to choose my narrative is, we'll get to that. It's called the Memoirs of Billy Shears. I'm gonna get that in just a minute. So he's on his way out of the studio. He's picked up this woman. He's speeding down the road. He's not paying attention. He gets into a car crash. He's decapitated. He's dead. The Beatles bring in a replacement, and we get into how that came about. And then from 1966 to now, 60 years now, this guy's been playing Paul McCartney, Billy Shears.
Okay, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
So has anybody found that woman that he was with in the car?
Well, so there's no, that's the thing. This death was kind of hush hush, and this is what my narrative, which this story tells me is the true narrative, we'll also get into. But there's been multiple different names of the woman. Well, nobody knows who it is for sure. But in terms of it making national headlines, a lot of people in my research claim that in 1966 they were sitting there watching TV and they saw a flash bulletin that Paul McCartney of the Beatles had been killed. Now, I can't find any video clips of that, but a lot of people testify to the fact that they were sitting there watching the news on September 11th of 1966, September 12th, 1966, and they saw the story that Paul McCartney was killed in a car crash. I can't find anything to verify that in terms of hard media, secondary sources, news articles, all hearsay.
Yeah, if anybody has any information about that, drop it in the comments. Any links to that or any websites or anything sharing about that, because we want to give people as much data as possible with this, because I think it's fascinating.
So McCartney is killed, and you know the Beatles at the time, they're so big. There's a few theories as to why they wanted to keep it going. First of all, they make too much money. We're not going to lose our, cash cow here. Also, they're saying, oh, it'll just destroy the fans. It's the same thing they were saying about aliens. Oh, we can't tell people about aliens. They'll go crazy and the world will turn upside down if we admit that there's aliens. Stupid stuff. But, the main reason is this institute called the Tavistock Institute, which came about right at the end of World War I, which is a sociological and, it's a psychological and sociological institute, which at the time came about to help men that were suffering with PTSD from World War One. But this morphs into this thing where now they're still around and they're pushing transgender stuff. So they get involved with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. They realize that they can use music to affect the culture, that they can get their ideas and push the culture in the direction they want to push it with music, with the pop idols. So the Tavistock has, again, it's contested how much involvement they had with the Beatles. The Beatles are not organic. To a point they are, that these guys came from Liverpool, but you got to think about the Beatles like a corporation or like a stage show or a TV show. Like you can switch people in and out. There's claims that there are multiple doubles of all the Beatles, not just Paul, that there's multiple Lennons, multiple Ringos, multiple Georges. Again, you can find a little bit on the Lennon stuff. I'm not really sold on the Ringo and the George stuff, but there are multiple theories that not just Paul, but all the Beatles have at least one or two doubles. I'm convinced there's at least three Pauls.
Well, I've seen a recent clip of an older gentleman that looked like he could be Lennon. Have you seen that?
I've seen a few.
Okay.
I don't know which one you're talking about, but I've definitely seen a few. And at this
Like
point,
that his death was
they're
staged and that he's still alive potentially.
his double may be alive. That's the
Mm.
thing.
Hmm.
So we'll get into this. So the guy they bring in, so that's the basic story. I just wanted to tell the basic story that most people know, that they put the clues in the albums, they put the clues in the songs. They were pioneers of backmasking, which is playing the songs backwards and putting messages in. In a lot of ways, the Beatles are absolutely trendsetters and the tip of the spear, very culturally significant. And but I think a lot of his mythology. For example,
Mm.
when I say mythology, I think from 1962 to 1966, from the first album all the way to Sgt. Pepper, you've got their vocalist only. They're not writing the songs. The timetable where they're producing these things and the way they say they're producing these songs, and this is really a shout out to the Sage of Quay, because he's the guy who's been leading the charge on this in terms of the Beatles conspiracy and history stuff for the past probably 15 years.
Hmm.
He's the absolute leader. So shout out to him because I get a lot of this information from him. There's about four things I'm getting a lot of tonight's information, and he is one of them. So again, like I said, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants tonight, bringing you this information.
Hmm.
But one of his big things is they didn't play on their first couple albums up to 66. They are just vocalists. The songs are pre-written, and these are basically just love songs. There's the 66 on, we're getting into the heavy psychedelic stuff.
Hmm.
What's interesting about the Paul theory is a lot of people like, I can't believe this Paul theory is true, because how can you find a left-handed bass player that is better than Paul McCartney, that looks like him and sings like him and plays better than the original?
Hmm.
Because the truth is, if the theory is true, this McCartney, Billy Shears from Sgt. Pepper on, wrote a lot of the psychedelic songs that the people really love, and all the
Hmm.
stuff obviously from the 70s and the 80s, the Wing stuff. He's been playing this character since 66.
Hmm.
So he's greater than the actual real McCartney is what it comes down to. And a
Hmm.
lot of people have trouble with that they found somebody better than him that looks like him. We'll get into that, and I've got a lot of information to prove that's true. So that's the basic theory.
Okay.
McCartney died in 66, car crash. It's all there in the lyrics, it's all there in the songs and the album art, even the videos. They were the pioneer of the music video too.
Hmm.
you know they pioneered a lot of things, so I'm not taking too much away from them, but they're more of like a commercial enterprise with interchangeable actors.
Okay.
It's a way to look at it.
Hmm.
So what
Yeah.
gets me back, okay, so I'm into conspiracy theories. I love this stuff. I, like you said, conspiracy theory enthusiast.
Hmm.
I can dip my toes into the conspiracy theory waters and not have it, I don't lose sleep over it.
Hmm.
If the Illuminati's trying to curb the population, if they're poisoning the water, if they're chemtrailing the skies, if they're brainwashing me with the music and the pornography, whatever, I don't lose too much sleep over it. I learn about it to say, okay, well, maybe I should avoid these things.
Hmm.
These things that I was unconsciously enjoying or had presented to me as a lifestyle. Okay, maybe I realize that there are nefarious actors behind these things, and like I said, it kind of ruins music. It's ruined Hollywood. It's ruined a lot of things when you investigate the powers that be that pull the levers and the switches that push the culture forward.
Yeah.
Because you don't get on the radio by accident. You're put there to push a message.
Hmm.
It goes deep with the music industry, where they'll, I don't know if you knew this, but they used to make a master recording, right? Every master recording they make, they send up to the top of the record building where they were making the records, and they would have, they put curses on the master. And so, like literal satanic curses, and they'd have seances and ceremonies where they would put curses on the master, and all the copies would have the curse on it. I don't know if you believe that, but
Oh, wow.
a lot
Yeah,
of
I
people,
haven't heard about
a lot,
that.
a lot of people, a lot of people in the industry have told that same story where the masters are cursed. Satanic. The music industry is satanic.
Hmm.
When the popular music industry, the deal with the devil, the Robert Johnson, about Robert Johnson making the deal at the Crossroads, right?
Mm-mm.
The blues player. I got a video I think you'll like. I don't know. Let me see if we can. I made this video about the Crossroads and the deal with the devil. Let me play it for you here.
Hmm.
Where is it? There we go. The Crossroads, deal with the devil. You know, Can you see that?
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh shit. Okay, my bad. Hold on.
All good.
There we go. Let me start this over. Okay, share the screen. Okay, that's better. Let me try.
Must be good to have as part of your legacy.
This is a video I made about a year ago. I can get it to work here.
As you probably know, Rolling Stone magazine just named your song, Like a Rolling Stone, the #1 song of all time. 12 of your songs are in their list of the top 500. That must be good to have as part of your legacy.
Oh, maybe this week, but you know, the lists, they change names, and you know, quite frequently. Really, I don't really pay much attention to that.
But it's a pat on the back, huh?
This week it is, but you know, who's to say how long that's gonna last?
Well, it's lasted a long time for you. I mean, you're still out here doing these songs, you know, you're still on tour.
I do, but I don't take it for granted.
Why do you still do it? Why are you still out here?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I mean, I made a bargain with it, you know, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
What was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain with?
with you know, with the chief commander.
On this earth?
And on this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
Have you ever seen Bob Dylan on 60 Minutes say that he sold his soul to the devil, and that as soon as he did that, he was given power? I like Bob Dylan too, but he admits that, and this is very serious. Satan tries to convince you with his spirit that he's going to give you gifts. God gives you the gifts, and then you can turn those towards the use of Satan, and that's really why Satan wants to control humans, because we're really more powerful than Satan. We just don't know it. Well, there ain't no rock and roll ever since they sold out Rolling Stone.
So anyway, I'm not going to play the whole video because it'll go another 4 minutes. But
Okay.
you know, I made this. You know, the whole industry is about selling your soul to the devil. The Beatles did that. Okay. The original story is Robert Johnson, the blues artist there I was just showing. He sold his soul to the devil at the Crossroads, and ever since then, it's been a thing for you to sell your soul to the devil to make it big, to get talent and fame and fortune in the music industry, but you always have to pay the price. Now, the story with the Beatles is they made a deal with the devil in 1963, and John Lennon made a deal with the devil where he'd have 20 years of fame, and then the devil came collecting because they started in 1960. The devil came to collect 20 years later when he was shot and killed by Chapman in front of his apartment in New York City. You know, his deal with the devil was over. Paul McCartney supposedly is the sacrifice. So either it's the car crash, or like I said, there are other stories where it is more straightforward of a sacrifice in an occult setting. But the general story is McCartney was killed in the car crash. And the story I'm basing my narrative tonight on comes from supposedly McCartney's own story, which is the Memoirs of Billy Shears. So that is where I kind of got back into this, because I kind of knew about the McCartney stuff for years. But I looked at it and I said, okay, well, he kind of looks like the same guy. I didn't examine it enough. I said, okay, whatever. They sound similar. They look the same. It's very hard to tell unless you really look a little bit deeper. So 6 months ago, I come across this book, and let me pull it up here. It's called The Memoirs of Billy Shears, and it was released on September 9th of 2009. Let me show you what it looks like. This is what the book looks like. That is what the book looks like. The Memoirs of Billy Shears by Thomas E.U. Harriot. And the first edition came out in September 2009. And the second edition, the 9 after 9, because Billy's also obsessed with numerology. You know, this book is 666 pages long. It was released 999. Okay, so Billy, aka the Paul McCartney we've known for the past 60 years, this is his memoir. This is a historical fiction. This is an encoded book, meaning because Billy is under a contract and this has to stay on the mom, he can't really talk about these things publicly. But McCartney's getting close to 90. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, McCartney is the actual Paul McCartney that died in 66 is 5 years younger than Billy. So Billy's very close. I think he's 88, 89 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've noticed with the Beatles in the past few years, they've been really rewriting their narrative. They just a couple of years ago released the Get Back sessions. I don't know, again, how familiar you are with the Beatles, but they released a movie in 1970 called Let It Be, and it was a failure of a movie, and it kind of showed a miserable end to the Beatles. Well, McCartney in the past 5 years has been really pedal to the metal, trying to rewrite his narrative, trying to really, because, it's only him and Ringo left, and Ringo doesn't really say much about the Beatles, but McCartney runs and holds the flag, and he tells the story how he's going to tell it. So This is what I ultimately got into. I got into the Memoirs of Billy Shears. Now, what's interesting about the version I got was I got the audiobook. Mm-hmm. Now, again, for those that don't know about the Beatles, George Martin, the producer at EMI, is the fifth Beatle that they worked with to make them the stars they were. He probably was a handler, either for the British intelligence or Tavistock, but he was a musical genius that was put with the Beatles and basically made them into the stars they were. What I found interesting about this ebook, this audiobook, and I recommend people check out the audiobook because his son, George Martin's son, reads this book. And I'm like, wow, that really gives it legitimacy. Mm-hmm. Because, not only is this book talking about the Beatles, using Beatles lyrics, it's got a picture of Paul McCartney in it. It's like, well, this seems kind of official. If it was kind of a fakey, stupid thing, you wouldn't see Greg Martin involved. And I got a video about him talking about that. So this book blew my mind because he's basically giving a confession, and he's talking about all the things. This is the author right here. This is the encoder. And he is pretty much a private person. He is real. He's not a made-up person. He doesn't do interviews. But the guy, Mike Williams, who's done a lot of this research and brought this book to the mainstream, has talked to this guy quite a bit. And that's assuming we believe Mike's, legit. But I believe that this is Paul McCartney has given this story to this encoder to tell. It is an encoded book. But it blew my mind because as a Beatles fan, it explained a lot. Mm-hmm. It explained lyrics. It confirmed the messages. It confirmed the backmasking. It explains so much. It just blew my mind. And it's led me on this journey over the past 6 months where I'm here, finally talking to you about it. I was going to do my own podcast, but I'm like, I just never got around to it. Mm-hmm. So again, thanks for having me on to talk about this.
Yeah, of course.
And so what I planned on doing was, okay, that's what got me into it. Now let's go back and let's look at the codes and the messages that people know about. So Billy comes in 1966, October, November, they get the band to agree with him. He gets control over the band. Lennon cedes control over the band to Billy, and they start working on Sgt. Pepper's. Are you familiar with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band?
Yeah.
Okay. This was their landmark album. This album changed music forever. And I mean, it just really, it brought so many new things. The way the album was produced, the lyrics on the back, the production techniques, the backmasking, everything. Now, this album cover, can you see the album cover there?
Yeah. There's some spiritual teachers on there.
There are.
Yeah.
There are. Do you recognize any of those spiritual teachers that you can talk
about? In the top left corner, that's Lahiri Lama. I always have a hard time pronouncing him, but he was Paramahansa Yogananda's teacher.
Yes. And right next to him is Crowley. Now, what's interesting about Billy in the book, he talks about it was 20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. Well, basically, he says he's related to Crowley. Aleister Crowley. Paul McCartney is the son, not Paul McCartney. Billy is the son of Aleister Crowley. Now, Billy is this master musician, classically trained, plays a ton of different instruments, So he comes in, he brings the Beatles into this new sound. So the first right out of the gate, people get this album and they're like, look at McCartney. He looks different. The whole band looks different. They look totally different from their, their mop top ways of only a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Now, a lot of people don't realize the Beatles got all mustaches there. That's all to hide the fact that that's a new McCartney, to hide his plastic surgery. They all got mustaches. They didn't have mustaches before. That is to, McCartney's taller. McCartney is 5'10", right? The real McCartney, the one that died. He's 5'10". Billy is 6'1", 6'2". You can see there he's taller than the rest of them. So right out of the gate, people are like, "What the hell is this? This is different." So they're in shock. McCartney's gone. He's dead. They're sad. This is Billy's like big chance to shine. They make this album. This album cover is Paul's funeral, and it's the band's funeral. So you've got Beatles there in the flowers. This is a grave. This is the grave of the Beatles. You see here, you've got the bass, right? That is a bass made out of yellow flowers. Those 3 strings, there's 4 strings on a bass, but here it only has 3. They're missing 1 Beatle. Let's see what else you got. If you look at the flowers in the yellow bass, it's PAUL ? Okay. You've got, let's see, all the band, like I said, all the band members look different. So there's this other character that Paul plays that we're going to get into called Vivian Stanshall. He is an avant-garde British performer who is parallel to the Beatles at that time in terms of making music and on the scene. That's Paul McCartney. He's playing another character. Paul McCartney wasn't known for playing all these instruments, but from this album on, McCartney's playing piano, he's playing woodwinds, he's playing brass, because Billy Shepherd is a musical genius. And he's basically the ringleader. He's the leader of the band now. So you've got, let's see what else we've got here. So Billy's flute is black, right? The rest of these guys have brass that are gold, but his is black. This is going to be a constant you're going to see with McCartney and the albums and in the videos and all the art going forward, where, McCartney's is going to be black, or it's going to be different, signifying that Paul is dead. So he's got a black instrument there. All right, what else we got? They're all kind of like turned in towards Billy. You've got Shiva down here pointing up at the old Paul. Now, see, you've got the old Beatles right here in the wax. You see the Beatles in the wax right there?
Yeah.
Okay, you've got Shiva pointing to them and Paul right there, and also Shiva's pointing up to Paul there. You've got a hand over Paul. This is another thing you're going to notice with Paul is Dead stuff, where in the art, on the album covers, in videos, you're going to see a hand over Paul's head. Some will say that is regarded as a spiritual blessing. Others will say that signifies death. What else we got? You've got another artist. Let's see here. Stephen Crane. I forget where he's at. There's an author here called Stephen Crane, and he wrote a book called The Open Boat, a story called The Open Boat, and it's about 4 men who make it to a lifeboat, but one of the characters named Billy drowns. Okay, so that's a deep clue. You got to know who Stephen Crane is as an author. Now, Jane Mansfield's in this picture too. Now, do you know about a Mansfield bar on a truck?
No.
Okay, so on the back of like a semi, they have this bar. It's called the Mansfield Bar, because in the 60s, Jane Mansfield was decapitated by running her car under a semi. And so that's why they invented the Mansfield Bar for semi trucks. So if you hit it, your bumper is going to hit it and you're not going to be decapitated. So, but interestingly enough, that doesn't happen until post McCartney. So that's an interesting synchronicity there. I don't know that happened, but Mansfield's there and she ultimately gets decapitated herself. Let's see. What other we have? So one of the bigger clues, I got to get another image to show you. So the drum head is a big clue. So at the time, the Beatles are heavily, especially Lennon, he is into, what's his name, Through the Looking Glass. What's his name? Oh, Carroll. Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. So if you take a mirror and you put it right up to the middle of this drum head where it says Lonely Hearts Club Band, it says 109 1. It says 1019 he died. You see that? 1019, the Roman numeral 9, he died. Okay, that arrow in he died points to Paul. if we zoomed out the picture. And so that's the date of Paul's death. And so some people will say 11/9. Well, that's November the 9th. But you got to remember, this is the UK. They do their dates backwards. So it's 9/11. So September 11th, 9/11, he died. So they've encoded Paul's death into the drumhead. All right, what else do we got here? I'll just pull some of these pictures up. They'll make it easier for the audience here to see. So there's the like I said, the flower that spells Paul.
Yeah.
You know, there's a flower arrangement. Okay, let's see what else. I just showed you that, but here's how you can see the mirror effect. So you see how he's holding a mirror up there.
Yeah.
So if you place a mirror halfway through the base, you know, 1X, he die. The first two numbers can be considered. Yeah, you got that. Okay, cool. All right. What else? What else? Also, like I said, they completely changed their look. And Paul is, again, the seems to be the center. They all kind of gravitate towards him. And people are buying this album in 1967 thinking, like, what the hell happened here? Now, a lot of people are like, okay, they're doing drugs. I do believe to a degree that drugs can affect your physiology. They can affect your physiognomy, or whatever the word is. They can affect the way you look.
Right.
It certainly you see that later with George and Lyndon when they're on heroin and cocaine and stuff. But these guys at the time were indulging in LSD. But, you know, I think the mustaches were to hide the fact that McCartney was going through. And again, the book, the Memoirs of Billy Shears, talks about they were using all kinds of latex, and he went through extensive plastic surgery. Okay, so Paul McCartney dies. Billy's brought in. Billy goes down to Kenya, and he's down there. This is documented that Paul McCartney was sightseeing in Kenya. You know, he's getting plastic surgery in Kenya, right? And during this time period. And let's see.
Was Kenya known for that at the time? I feel like
it was a place where British people went, and EMI had a studio.
Okay.
And we're not going to get into the endless topic on the people on this cover.
For example, there's a lot of people on the cover for those listening in.
And Lennon wanted Hitler. Lennon wanted Jesus, but, you know, his record company fought against that. And ultimately, Jesus and Hitler were not put on the cover. But they're all holding Bill's. So like I said, Bill was a wind instrument player. Bill was a master musician, is a master musician. They're holding wind instruments. They're holding brass. Okay. This is unheard of at the time from the Beatles. All right. What else do we got? Like, you got the old version of the Beatles. Okay. The Beatles have died, right? The Beatles, you'll notice going forward, they don't consider themselves a band unless all four of the original Beatles are there. Once Paul died, they were a different band. And Paul McCartney, aka Billy Shears, we're going to get into his history because he has known many different names. He's a man of 1,000 different voices. He can play many different characters. And we're also going to be, like I said, the hand over the head is going to be a big thing. And like I said, some people think it's death. I'm not sure. A lot of these clues are ambiguous. Here's another one. Here's another big one. So in the UK, OPD means officially pronounced dead. It's our version of DOA. On the jacket, he's got OPD.
Yeah.
Now, he talks about this. That's the thing I love about this book. Billy talks about the creation of this album, the album cover. He gets through all the myths. He explains it away. It's a real definitive story on all these questions that Beatle fans have asked for years. If you're a Beatle fan and you haven't read the Memoirs of Billy Shears, go out and buy the book today. Get the audiobook. You will not regret it. It'll answer a lot of your questions, and it'll really blow your mind.
So and we're not sponsored by them, just to
no,
clarify.
We're not.
Yeah.
I don't get any money from anybody.
Right.
I'm just fascinated and I enjoy this. So a lot of people saw this. They said OPD. Now that means they think officially pronounced dead. That's the clue. But really it's OPP. It's Ontario Police, Provincial Police. If it's a Canadian thing. Paul says he got this in Canada. Okay. But he also says in the book, he says they shot it in a way. They purposely shot this so it would come off as OPD. So that's the clue, and Billy confirms it in the book. Another thing is, this is the first album with lyrics. They put the entirety of the lyrics on the back. Now you can't see it here, but George is pointing to the time in one of the lyrics where it talks about Paul being dead at 5 o'clock. You see Billy has got his back turned, and he's also significantly taller than the rest of the Beatles here.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Paul McCartney, the original, the real biological Paul, is 5'10",
Yeah.
about the same as George and Lennon. Billy's 6'1", 6'2". You'll notice Billy is also a lot of times not wearing shoes. A, to symbolize death. B, I think, to hide his height. All
Yeah,
right,
he's also the only one facing away. Like everybody, all the other three Beatles are facing forward, and he's turned around.
right. Okay, a few other clues here. We got the 11/9 he die. You've got the open palm. Another one is there are 3 Shirley Temple. There's a cutout and there's 2 dolls. There's a Shirley Temple doll there, and there's one there, and there's another one up here somewhere. This one's interesting because let me pull up the better picture. There is a tiny version. There is a tiny. I don't know if I can zoom in here on this one. I should have had photo.
Yeah, it has
Well,
that up top. There's that plus with the microscope.
Right there. There's a little Aston Martin with red on the inside, just like Paul was killed in.
I see it.
Sitting on her lap there. And right next to her is a bloody driving glove. And it also says, welcome the Rolling Stones. Now, the Rolling Stones are like the yin to the yang to the Beatles. They're both controlled by Tavistock. They're both out there to push drugs, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and a cultural shift to the people.
Yeah.
So that's why you see that there. And there's Crowley up there, and like you said, there's, I think Yogananda's on here too, actually. Yogananda, or there's what's the one that is like the mother of all of those Hindu guys is right there.
Yeah, that's
Babaji's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of there's Dylan. Oh, there's Yogananda right there. Yogananda's right there.
Oh, there he is. Okay,
And-
yeah, he just looks a little different.
Yeah. So a lot of these guys are dead. There's a few alive, like Brando at the time, and
Yeah, and
Dylan.
one of the other gurus is right under him as well in the image. Yeah. Jesus isn't on there, right?
Well, they wanted to. Lennon
Right.
wanted Jesus, but EMI wouldn't let him.
Okay.
So that is. Let's see here. What else do I got for that one? That's basically all I've got for those clues. Now, that's just the clues on the album cover. So, like I said, this is the first song with album lyrics. Oh, another thing is, I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but Paul has only 3 black buttons on his jacket there. You can't really see it in that picture. You'd have to zoom in on it. Let's see. George pointing to the lyrics. Let's see. Okay, so with a little help from my friends, that song introduces the character of Billy Shears. It's the first time that the name Billy Shears is mentioned in the Beatles world. So that's a big deal. He's basically, this is Billy's coming out party. Now, there's a few clues in this album as well. And at the end of Strawberry Fields. Now, Strawberry Fields isn't technically, I should actually save that for Magical Mysteries Tour. I'm going to save that for that one. What's interesting about the drum head, the artist that the drum head that is given credit is named Joe F. Grave. That's the name of the artist that has made, and there's no Joe F. Grave that exists. That is a portmanteau of epigraph and grave, F. Grave, epitaph, like a tombstone, F. Grave. So Joe F. Grave is the artist that made this drumhead. It's not a real person. That's what I'm saying. It's another clue. This is Paul's epitaph. Okay. So that's the gist of Billy's coming out party, Paul's grave, which is Sgt. Pepper's. Not too long after that, they come out with the Magical Mystery Tour. Here's the album cover for that. Lots of clues with this one as well. Now, supposedly, you could flip the Beatles upside down and it would reveal a phone number. That comes up basically inconclusive as a clue, but it was a big one back in the day. You see, the walrus was Paul, okay? So there supposedly is Paul again as the walrus in black, right?
That's why he says the walrus is dead.
The walrus is Paul.
The walrus is Paul. Okay.
And Glass Onion. Now, if you were able to take a mirror to the word tour, it would come up with the word look. So I want you to look inside the booklet. This album came with a 24-page color booklet. It also had an accompanying movie. The movie is objectively terrible. It's a really bad movie. It did bad at the time, but it had a few amazing music videos, and it's got a lot of clues in the music videos. We're going to start with this first clue here, which is this is, I think, I Am the Walrus video. Now, what you've got here is the four Beatles. Now, Paul, right there, is barefooted. He's just wearing socks.
Mm-hmm.
The clue here is the bloody shoes. And again, in some cultures, this is seen as the person has died. You know, the empty shoes.
How can you tell that they're bloody?
In a better version, you can tell.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find a better version. But they are bloody.
Okay. They look brown really, in that photo.
Well, there's some red there.
Okay.
But here's the bigger clue. And again, Paul is barefooted, so he can look a little shorter, I think. But it says "Love the Three Beatles" on that drum head. I'm gonna pull it up again. Here we go. Love the Three Beatles. You see that? Love the Three Beatles. There's another clue. So these are the original Beatles. There's Billy. He is not an original Beatle.
Mm-hmm.
There's another clue for you. Now, in the Magical Mystery Tour, there is a video for Your Mother Should Know. They're coming down the staircase. They're singing a song, and can you notice the big difference here? What's the clue? Okay, you there?
Oh yeah, the black flower.
Yeah, he is wearing a flower. Now, what they say happened was they ran out of blue or they ran out of red, but who the hell has a black one? You know, so
right.
Black usually symbolizes death. This is again the clue, and you know, I think they are purposely putting these clues in, and I think they're just saying we didn't. You know, one of the theories is that Paul never died, and they just wanted to sell records, because if you're looking for clues and you're destroying your records, playing them backwards, you're going to buy more records. You know, so it was a great marketing scheme if it was true. So that's
right.
a big clue, and Your Mother Should Know, that the black flower on Paul.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious.
Inside the booklet, you've got this in the movie. You've got this scene. Now, there's two clues really in this one. The first clue is it says "I was," you know, in the past tense, right there. This is Billy.
Right.
I was. Okay. Now, another clue, and you've got to really know your stuff for this one, is this, well, the way these flags are set up here is, I guess that is for like a military salute for the dead or something. I don't know the exact terminology, but this is how they would arrange it for somebody in the military who had died. So you've got I was. So just littered with clues. Let's see what else we've got. So the Magical Mystery Tour. Oh, here's the look clue I didn't get to really show you. So yeah, if you took the mirror to that word tour there, it turns into look. You know, when a mirror is held halfway through the word, you know, it's look for clues.
Uh-huh.
All right. And let's see. There's Paul as the walrus again. Black, signifying death. And they also say that the walrus in certain cultures signifies death. Again, ambiguous. So, you know, do what you want with that. But we got one more here. This is Phil Ackrell, Billy, Paul, whatever you want to call him. He makes his appearance. You can't really see that too good there. Let me show you a different one. Okay, this is what Billy looks like without latex makeup on the set of the Magical Mystery Tour. There's a point in the movie where it zooms right up to him on the back of the bus. Now, in this movie, I believe that they are having Billy and his double in this movie. I don't think there's just one Paul in this movie. And here is what Billy looks like before the heavy surgeries, before the latex. Very similar looking. There's Billy as McCartney.
Wow.
So we're going to move on from the Magical Mystery Tour. Let's see what this one says here. Oh, that's another thing. I got the videos for these things. I don't have to pull up the videos, because every time in Strawberry Fields they say nothing is real, you see a picture of Paul. And I'm gonna go through the video. We're gonna look at some videos now before I get through these clues. Let's go to my playlist. Okay, so people that want to see, excuse me, people that want to see my playlist, you just go to playlists and you're going to see Paul is Dead podcast and Paul is Dead. I'm going to go with my podcast one here.
Cool.
Okay. So let's show you a good one here. Another one. So McCartney is this man of 1,000 voices. And I tried to find a modern, like, can people do this? Is this something that people can do? And I don't know, but Ariana Grande, she actually is a master impressionist. She can sing like anyone. And Billy can do this too. Billy is known for singing in a deep voice and a low voice as Paul McCartney. These studio session musicians in the 60s, they were a jack of all trades. Billy could really sing. And I wanted to show people that it is possible. Ariana Grande can sing as just about anyone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the wonder of Ariana. Cause baby, that ain't gonna work.
Miley Cyrus, Gwen Stefani.
I'm not gonna do Gwen Stefani cause they promise I'm not singing any new impressions. I won't sing because it hurts. Next, Grande channels
She
Eugene
can
Levy
do
in a
just about anybody. She's known for that. So I just wanted to put that out there because, you know, people can do this. It's not that far-fetched that Billy was out there doing this because, you know, Ariana Grande can do it. I've seen other musicians have this ability to be master impressionists.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. Paul is Dead, Many Clues in Strawberry Fields Forever. I'm going to turn that down now because we don't want to get copyrighted. So I'm going to play the video here. So here's the first clue. You're always going to see a white car, usually a convertible, in relation to Paul McCartney, his white Aston Martin. And in Strawberry Fields and I Am the Walrus, you see the car coming at Paul's head. So let's just watch and see this. White car over Paul's head. And every time they say nothing is real. Where was the white car? We missed that. Let me see the white car. Okay. You see the white car? Here it comes. Boom.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
It?
Yeah.
Right at his head.
Yeah.
Okay. And now every time we see, and they call him Paul, which is the fake Paul. Every time they say nothing is real, we see Paul.
Yep.
Paul. Paul. Paul again. Nothing is real. Nothing is real.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the clues in the videos. Let's go back. Let's see. Let's see. Well, let's get into Vivian Stanshall because that's a very interesting. That's actually a good parallel to what he was. So Vivian Stanshall, do you know who that is? Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Okay. So like I said, where's the Vivian stuff? Here we go. Vivian Stanshall. Let me show you what he looks like. Let's see. All right. Now, Vivian Stanshall was, like I said, avant-garde 60s singer, performer. He was in the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band.
Mm-hmm.
Probably never heard of them. I never actually heard of them until I started reading this book.
Yeah.
Where he talks about playing this character. I'm like, okay. And I look into it and I'm like, wow, okay. He is really playing this character. Now, this character, Vivian Stanshall, he appears in the Magical Mystery Tour, right? The one we were just talking about. Now,
yeah.
It's the smallest little picture. Some of these are not the greatest, but if you want to know what Paul McCartney, Vivian Stanshall, Billy Shears really looks like, and Billy says this in his book, he says, look at my son. Now, this is Paul McCartney's biological son. This is what Billy Shears looked like before his surgeries, before he did all the sacrifice. And he talks about it in the book where he would spend hours on end perfecting his eyebrow because Paul McCartney's got his eyebrow going up in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see it here. Same eyes and bone structure. All right. That's Vivian. That's Paul. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Vivian does the same thing with his character where he has a double. Vivian will play this character, and when he's not playing him, he'll have another actor. Like there's a performing Paul and there's the street Paul. There's a performing Vivian and there's a street Vivian. Now, when Paul wasn't playing Vivian, he'd have a guy that he had on his payroll play this character, make appearances from time to time, go on TV. But when it came to the performing aspect, it was always Billy Shears playing the performance. And you can see, like I said in the book, Billy spent a considerable amount of time perfecting that McCartney eyebrow lift.
Right.
Because as much surgery as he had, he also, spent time. He had to learn how to play musical instruments left-handed, and from time to time, Billy would get caught as McCartney playing right-handed. He just gave up smoking cigarettes with his left hand. He never even bothered with that. So, again, this is what McCartney's son looks like today. James McCartney. This is Billy Shears, aka Vivian, aka Paul, in the mid '60s, performing as this character. Now, have you ever heard of Death Cab by Cutie?
Yeah.
All right. So here's another clue here. Death Cab by Cutie. Let me get the song going here. So you can actually see Stan Shaw perform. That's not what I want. There we go. No, I want the song. There we go. So this was Vivian Stanshall's most famous song. This is the Bonzo Dewdog Band. You're gonna see what he was performing like prior to being Paul McCartney.
We've had requesting the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band.
Now listen to the
ones in my
song.
dressing room. But I expect you're wondering why I'm here. Well, on this song they're coming.
Listen to the piano. That's Paul McCartney. Okay, so you get the gist of it. Now I'm going to show you Paul McCartney tipping his hat as the character at an award show. Let me find that clip here.
I can sing a few notes. I'm old. Backwards. They talk about.
Do that. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So Paul goes on this award show. He accepts this award, and you're gonna hear this amazing clip here. Where's the music? Here we go.
Paul McCartney.
Listen.
Hi, Stephen. Good evening. All the best on this award thing you're getting tonight. I want to tell you really deserve it. This is Paul McCartney speaking, by the way. Remember him?
That's another thing. Remember him? He's always dropping masterful speak that he's alluding to the fact that he's not Paul. Remember him?
I want to tell you you really deserve it. This is Paul McCartney speaking, by the way. Remember him? Anyway, listen, I just want to tell you that it's really great you're getting this thing, and I'm very happy for you. I hope you have a really great evening, and all the best from me. I'm on holiday in Jamaica, by the way. It's all right for some people, isn't it? Well, anyway, have a great time this evening, and lots of love from all of us.
From Detroit, Diana Ross.
You hear that piano?
Yeah.
You catch that? That was the Death Cab for Cutie. Now, Death Cab for Cutie, guess who the cute Beatle is? Paul. Death Cab, right? The car accident. So Death Cab for Cutie is a song about Paul's accident. The stuff goes on and on and on and on and on. So Stan Shaw is Billy Shears, is Paul McCartney. I don't know. Can you see it? I can see it. I can see the resemblance.
It's a little bit.
But you got to remember plastic surgery and fillers. And here's another thing. His band, this is what the band, his Bonzo band, that avant-garde stuff. And a lot of the songs, the musicality of the Beatles changed, and a lot of it sounds like a Bonzo song. But you have to know the Bonzo stuff to know that. And I didn't know the Bonzo stuff until I went down this rabbit hole. What else here? All right. So here we go.
The Bonzos was the band that Billy was in?
Yes.
Okay.
Vivian. So you've got biological Paul here. you've got Billy, which is his replacement, the performer musician. You also have Street Paul. This is the non-musical double. So,
Okay.
like I said, these Beatles had at least one double, sometimes two. Biological Paul had three doubles. Some say Billy was along with them. Some say Billy taught the Beatles. That's one of the things he alludes to in his book, that he taught the Beatles growing up, coming up, a lot of their musicality, that Billy's been along for the ride the whole time. So Billy takes over the contract as the performing McCartney. Street Paul, just like Vivian, there's a Street Vivian, and then Billy performs as Vivian. It can be a little confusing. Here's another interesting one. So right when the Beatles, that first era from 1962 to 1966, right before Pepper, right before Billy comes in, they release this album called A Collection of Beatles Oldies. Now, the Beatles have only been around for 4 years. What kind of oldies are we talking about?
Right.
Right? But so this is Billy. This is Vivian. See this character right here that looks just like Vivian, right? This avant-garde, colorful character. Here's another fascinating one. Let's see. Is it this one? Here's another one. The Bonzo album cover, Old Bill, right, is a clue. Bill, right there. There's Vivian. There's McCartney. There's Billy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had no idea that he was playing this character. And so let's see. But he starts as Denny. He starts as, Phil Ackrell. So this is what Billy looks like as when he's young, before any surgeries, before Vivian, before Paul McCartney. This is Phil Ackrell, aka William Shepard, Billy Shears. This is what Paul McCartney used to look like. He played with this band called Denny and the Diplomats. And Denny Lane, I don't know if you're familiar with Wings, but this ends up being Paul's guitarist for Wings. They end up working again in the 70s. Okay, he keeps his friends close. Here we go. I'll show you. So, Phil and Denny. So there's Billy Shears, Paul McCartney, and Denny. There's Denny again. And there's Billy, a.k.a. Paul, and Wings. All right. Another interesting story about McCartney. McCartney, post Beatles, we're going to jump around, I guess, a little bit. But McCartney, post Beatles, on his last tour with Wings, he goes to Japan. Now, McCartney's famous for his marijuana. He loves weed, and he's always getting busted for it. McCartney gets busted going into Japan with like a pound of weed.
I remember that. Yeah,
him being cocky about it. I'm Paul McCartney. Nothing's going to happen to me. He gets busted in Japan. I think he's in like jail for like 9 days. The reason they don't let him go is this. Now, back in the biological McCartney's early days when they were performing in Germany, McCartney got kicked out of Germany with, I think, Ringo for setting a fire in a hotel room. Interpol has biological McCartney's fingerprints. So when Paul McCartney gets busted in Japan in 1980, they look at his fingerprints and they're like, who the hell are you? Because your fingerprints do not match what we have on record here. And so it takes him 9 days for the British government to get it straightened out. One of their, he's Sir Paul McCartney. He's been knighted twice. This is a huge asset for the British Empire. So I guess they work behind the scenes because you don't really get a clear story on this. But, and this goes, there's a paternity thing too, where, let me see if I can pull this up. I have it here. Where is it? Okay, so but biological Paul, these guys are traveling, they're partying, they're sleeping around, they're fathering children. McCartney had at least, biological Paul, had at least 2 children from women in Europe. The song Michelle, I don't know if you're familiar with that song. It's a very famous song. But
Michelle,
he's singing in French. He's got a daughter in France. And he talks about this in the book where, Billy becomes Paul. And these women are coming out of the woodworks because, with this one in particular, Bettina, I think this is in Germany. They have a kid, and he's been, biological Paul was paying money to this woman until 1966. 1967, this woman stops getting payments. Billy's not going to pay some of these things. It's not his kid, ultimately, biologically.
Yeah.
This woman fights and tries to get Billy, who she thinks is Paul, to come and give the DNA and give a maternity test. Come to find out, it's not his. It doesn't match. She's convinced it's a double. And
so she actually went and did that?
This is documented. This is real, where the court said, you're not the father, even though biological Paul was the father. When he stopped paying, she demanded payment. He took a maternity test. Comes to find out, it's not Billy's, obviously. She's like, wait a minute, this guy, his signature's wrong. He's right-handed. This is she fought it. The case was dismissed, but the point was, it's not just crackpot conspiracy theorists thinking that this is not the real McCartney.
Right.
There are, like I said, with the Japan case, where the Interpol fingerprints don't match what they're pulling off of Billy in Japan.
Yeah.
Or this maternity suit in Germany. And these are documented in the book as well.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating rabbit hole.
Yeah,
And
those are more convincing to me.
Oh, definitely. The one in Japan blew my mind. It's like, wait a minute, this guy is not the fingerprint. They don't match. The Japanese were convinced it was an imposter as well. So let me continue on. So Billy, a man of 1,000 voices, is playing Phil Ackrell. He's playing Vivian Stanshall. He's playing Paul McCartney. He's doing all kinds of studio work in the 60s. And, Paul McCartney also likes to wear disguises. He was in Pirates of the Caribbean. He's made an orchestral album under the name Percy Thrills Thrillington. He made an album under the band called The Firemen. Paul McCartney likes to play different roles. He likes to play different character. I mean, Billy.
You said he was in Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yes.
Which
I
one?
Can pull that up. The last one. Let me pull it up here. Here we go.
Come on, pirates. Hold on. Stop.
Guilty found. Uncle Jack! Jackie boy! How's it going?
Oh, there he is.
You? I've been waiting all morning in here for a beating, but the service is terrible. Shameful.
Jack. The oceans have turned to blood. Best to stay on dry land where it's safe.
I'm about to be executed on dry land.
Good point.
Did I ever tell you the one about the skeleton?
Yes, you have many times.
Skeleton goes into a bar, orders a beer and a mop.
Oh, wow.
Funny as ever.
Come on, let's go. Oh, if they disembowel you, ask for Victor. He's got the softest hands.
Thank you.
And mention my name. They won't cut your feet off.
All right, here's another one I want to show you, another video. I think it's important. Now, Paul McCartney, when he's giving interviews, he never gets his history right. He's lost his Liverpool accent, and a lot of people have noticed. And I love this one where this historian, where's the one here? Let's see.
There are some people who...
What's this video called? George Harrison. Here we go. Paul McCartney rewrites the Beatles' history all the time.
Welcome to West 57th. There's never been anything like...
I mean, it was a fairly heavy psychological disaster.
Now, this is a Beatles historian talking about how basically George Harrison's the only one to be trusted. Lennon's dead. Ringo was a drunk. And McCartney rewrites history. And it's very interesting for him to say this. I'll play it.
Philip Norman is the author of Shout, which many consider the definitive Beatles biography.
The Beatles is not a normal story. It's a supernatural story. And the pressure was supernatural. And it required supernatural luck and forbearance to recover from it. And he has recovered from it. He's the one that we're going to have to ask about the Beatles. There's no one else to ask now, because McCartney won't tell you. Ringo can't tell you. John isn't here.
When you say Paul won't tell you, what do you mean?
He rewrites history all the time.
And Ringo can't tell you because...
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know?
No, he just, he drank the drink, he smoked the joints, he had the girls, and he drummed the drums. That was Ringo.
Harrison was barely in his 20s when the world embraced the Beatles.
So McCartney, and it's interesting, McCartney, you'll hear him talking like he was brought in the band. He'll say stuff all the time. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you were brought into the band last. You were an originator of the band with Lennon. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Billy's got so many clues. Here's another one. This is a good video. I think this is a good one. Turn the music down. All right. Sergeant Pepper, Billy Shears. Now, we've got the car over Billy's head. We saw that in Strawberry Fields Forever. There's the car going into his head.
Right.
Okay. Here's another one. This was in I'm the Walrus. This is a crappy version, but you'll see here. See the car going into his head there?
Yeah.
There's another one. All right. What are some more clues? He's got a suitcase here that says Billy Martin on it. Billy Martin. There's another one here standing in front of a sign that says Billy.
Mm-hmm.
What's this one? Oh yeah, in this movie, there's a part of this movie where he gets introduced to this guy. They introduce him as William. There's another one here where if you mirror it, it says Bill.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. Lots of clues. This is a recent video where he's picking up a woman in the white looking, Aston Martin looking car. They don't get into a car accident in the car, but again, an allusion to the car crash.
Mm-hmm.
So over and over again, we've got the clues. Not to mention the things we haven't even talked about. I mean, the backmasking. Now, this was one of the most fascinating ones here.
What does backmasking mean?
Meaning they've recorded a message backwards, and if you play it forwards, you can hear what they're actually saying. So when they talk about playing records backwards, the hidden messages, the Beatles were pioneers in that. Now, this is one of the most fascinating ones. Let's see if I can find the original article here. Italian forensic science proves Paul McCartney was replaced. So this is in 2009, Italian Wired magazine, this couple, Zini and Carlesi, they conducted a biometrical analysis of Paul pre-post 1966. They saw discrepancies in the facial features that could not be accounted for by error or plastic surgery. So this was scientifically done. And if you go to the article, they'll have a translation of it. But basically, I read the article and they're saying this is not a match. This is way off. There's a margin of error which we consider within the range that it would be him, but this is nowhere near. This is it says there's 6% discrepancy. They have to be under 1.5%. So they're saying their biometric markers, the ears, the face, the chin. So, and this is one other thing I wanted to get into. I know we're running out of time, so let me get a few more good ones here. Paul versus Billy. No, not that one. It is Billy's Differences. So this is the art by Vivian Stansall. I'll pull it up. Come on. This is the art by Billy. They look very similar, right? That's the art by Paul McCartney, and that's the art by Vivian. Looks like the same style to me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's that. This is what I find fascinating. Billy has green eyes. Paul has brown. Okay. Now there's certain things like height, eye color. Eye color you can change now, but this is the 60s.
Yeah.
Let's see. Billy parts on the right, Paul parts on the left. His hair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Parts on the right, parts on the left. And if you look at their faces, you can tell it's not the same person. But again, this is going back to what I was saying about like the moon landing. In 1966, 67, you maybe had a magazine. Maybe you'd see it flash on the TV. You didn't even have a VCR. Let me see. This is Paul. All right. There's 66 Paul. There's 67 Paul. Paul and Billy. Billy's got a longer face. He's got different ears, different eyes, bigger forehead. They have different teeth. You can't tell in these pictures. But again, that's what this an Italian the Italian couple, they ended up finding out that these are not the same people. Mm-hmm. Also, Mike Williams goes and he uses AI and he uses Grok, and they do an extensive run through of these pictures, and it's not the same. It's not the same person. Grok is saying there's no way this is the same person. There might even be two different Pauls. Now, another fascinating one is Heather Mills. Heather Mills is a former wife of Paul McCartney after Linda died, and she gets on here talking about Paul's secrets.
You know why?
Here we go.
And I will say nothing. You know why I've left you. Protect me, and I will say nothing. Something so awful happened. Someone I'd loved for a long time, I found out, had betrayed me immensely, and I don't mean infidelity or anything like that, like beyond belief.
So somebody betrayed you, and of course everyone here is going to believe that that's Paul McCartney. In a way, not infidelity, that is so much deeper than that. It wounded you and pushed you towards suicide.
Yeah, it did. And he knows that.
So it's Paul.
But I've got to protect myself. I have to protect myself. People don't want to know what the truth is because they could never, ever handle it. They would be too devastated.
This is his ex-wife. So, this is the reason they get a divorce, is because she finds out. Now, here's another video.
I have protected Paul for this long, and I'm trying to protect him, but I am being pushed to the edge. Right. And that's as much as I can say. Oh, I go to jail for telling the truth. I go to jail for telling the truth. I go to jail for telling the truth. So I'm gagged at the moment because I'm not allowed to say a word while the media are fed this spin by a certain corner.
All right, but then again,
it's
people...
rubbish.
Right, okay.
I can tell my story right now. I'm trying to protect Paul. I'm trying to protect Paul. I'm trying to protect...
Yeah, long story short, she finds out the truth and she gets the hell out of there.
Wow. She looks a lot younger than him. Is this a really old video?
Yeah, this was late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
But, we didn't even get to all the rest of the clues. So let me see. The big one
we're good.
is...
We're good with time for a little while.
Are we okay? Another one is, well, let's go to the White Album. Okay, so, actually, Yellow Submarine. The Yellow Submarine, I got just a few quick ones. So basically, the Yellow Submarine is a coffin. Sky of blues. Let me get rid of this picture for some reason. I cannot make it go away. There we go. All right, Yellow Submarine, there's a few clues. Yellow Submarine is a coffin. Sky of blue, sea of green. Okay, what's a sea of green? It's grass. The submarine is buried. Okay, it's a coffin. Again, look at Lennon's hand here on this picture. You've got a hand over Paul's head. Okay. In the movie, you've got two Pauls at one point on the screen. And also there's another Paul is dead clue in the movie. Yellow Submarine, the gravestone makes an appearance with the mysterious number 49 at the top. It's speculated that because Paul has 4 letters and McCartney has 9, the person that lies there is Paul McCartney. That's just Yellow Submarine, and that's just the tip of the iceberg on that one. I'm going to get through some of these. The White Album comes out, and this is when they're in India. I believe the Beatles ultimately went to India, not only to pursue. So the big thing I didn't really get into is this. Paul McCartney, prior to his death, is having premonitions that he's going to die. He's having dreams. He is seeing Billy in his mind's eye in his dreams. He's already met this man in his dreams. He's predicting his death. It's scaring everyone around him. This is in the book. And so he's trying to set up his replacement. That's why at the time they have a Paul McCartney lookalike contest. McCartney is out there trying to set up his legacy, and he ultimately dies. Right. So his dreams come true. This scares the Beatles. And I think this propels George to go to India, because George is the first one to pursue India and to go into that spiritual, there's something more. He's having premonitions of his death. There's something bigger than this material world. I think a lot of these guys were very material in the beginning. just like anybody would be in their young 20,
For
as a
sure.
rock star, just living that life. So materialism and the Paul thing just cracks them all, and they pursue Eastern spirituality. They pursue enlightenment. They pursue greater understanding, a greater spiritual truth.
Right.
And I think also, just like, and Paul's involved with spreading LSD. He was at the Monterey Pop Festival, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. This is a very psychedelic band. They are openly promoting the psychedelic drug agenda for Tavistock, for the New Age, for the New World Order, and their agenda for the counterculture movement. And I think Eastern spirituality goes hand in hand with that. I mean, for me personally, when I explored psychedelics, I said, okay, there's something beyond this 3D world. There's realms in my mind, that the inner world, maybe a kingdom that the Christ is talking about. How do I get there? How do I go further? Okay, meditation, spirituality.
Yeah.
So I think, between Paul's death, his premonitions coming true, because this shook him to the core, according to this book. It shook them all to the core, that Paul had premonitions, and he set up his death and his replacement. Like, they all knew this was coming. And so the White Album is a byproduct of their time in India. And what's interesting about the White Album is it comes with this poster on the inside. Let me make this a little bigger. Now, right here, way at the bottom, is a picture of what people say is mid-surgery McCartney. And it's included in the book. Here's what the actual picture looks like. This is supposedly Billy Shears mid-surgery. He hasn't quite transferred over to the full McCartney character. He's still a lot of Billy/Vivian. All right. That's really the best. I mean, in the White Album has the clues of Revolution number 9. Have you heard the White Album? Number 9, number 9, number 9.
Yeah.
It's okay. So it's a very interesting track. It's pretty. Let me get my notes out here. It's pretty long. So there's a few clues. So, like I said, I think the thing that kicks off this whole thing for these college students in 68, 69 is the fact that Lennon is saying in Glass Onion, here's another clue for you all. The walrus was Paul. What the hell does that mean? Okay. With no context, prior.
Right.
And, in between the song, I'm So Tired, and Blackbird, you can hear the words backwards. If you play it backwards between these two tracks, you can hear Lennon saying, Paul is dead man. Miss him, miss him, miss him. If you play that track backwards. Now Revolution number 9 is a sound collage. Some will say is of Paul's crash. You can hear screaming and a car crash. And if you play it backwards, where the guy is in the frontwards version saying number 9, number 9, he's actually saying, turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man, turn me on, dead man. So Beatles love backmasking the clues. That's what they did a lot in this album. In the song Don't Pass Me By, which is Ringo's song on the album, there's a whole verse about you were in a car crash and you lost your hair. Because famously, and it's also it's on Peppers too, where they talk about McCartney getting his head lopped off. Supposedly, he was going bald at the time. His head was peeled back. He was unrecognizable. He was so bad. He was completely decapitated. Let's see. Some say that also, okay, this is the autopsy photo here. I don't believe it. Because so in the poster included on the White Album, like I said, you got the William Campbell mid-surgery picture, but then also potentially here is the autopsy photo. I think he was more decapitated than that. I don't think he was recognizable. But that's what they say. That's part of the clues. So that's the White Album. Let's move on to Abbey Road. Abbey Road was the famous one where these guys are dressed like a funeral procession, right?
Right, and they're walking across the street on the white lines. That the famous photo of the Beatles.
You got Lennon in white, which is the clergy. You got Ringo as the Undertaker / whatever. Paul the corpse. Now Paul's doing a few things here. Paul is famously a lefty. He's got his cigarette in the right hand. The cigarette also is referred to as a coffin nail. And Billy is not only out of step with the Beatles, but he has his eyes closed and he's barefoot. Now,
Yeah.
McCartney says the day of he was wearing sandals and it was too hot. Well, if it's too hot, why the hell do you want to walk on, hot pavement? Doesn't make his story doesn't make any sense. Because that's his official story that it was too hot. He was wearing sandals. He took them off. And what's interesting about this image is they only took 5 shots. They got this image in 5 shots without a digital camera. And if you look at the other 4 shots, they're terrible. I don't know how they got this shot so good. Did they plan it, or was it? You got to think they planned it. And then, of course, you've got George as the gravedigger. And then in the back, you've got the white beetle, which is famous for, it says 28 if, LMW 28 if, which means Paul would have been 28 if he was alive. So it's interesting also that it's a beetle, the 5th beetle in the picture. And what else do we got going on here? Oh, the back of the cover is interesting too, where you've got a few little things. So you can see right here where it says Beatles. Well, if you trace this line, it can either be 5, but most people think it's 3 Beatles, right? Because Paul is dead. Also, you've got a crack going through the S, right? Signifying that the band is no longer whole. Now, some of these things are reaches.
Right.
I'm trying to be as objective as possible.
It's good to cover all of them so that it's getting all the data.
Yeah. So that's the gist of the Abbey Road. But this is right around that the radio program and the news program talked about Paul being dead. Now they ultimately go and find Paul. Let me see if I can find it here. They ultimately go searching for Paul, and he's famously on the cover of the Life magazine here, November 1969. Paul is still with us, and he's out there living on his farm in Ireland, right? Well, Paul isn't Irish. Paul is from Liverpool. He's a city boy. And this is one of the things that Billy stresses in the book, which is I'm from the farm. I'm a farmer. I'm a country boy. He's Irish, Billy Shears. So, this was after all that radio and TV play of Paul being dead. This was, they went out onto his farm. He was mad at first. He didn't want to do the interview, but he told him, I'll do the interview. I'll take a few pictures if you go away.
And so the wife that we saw, that's her in the photo right now, right?
Linda McCartney. That's not the one that we saw in the interview. That was Heather Mills. That was his wife after Linda. So Linda married him in 69. They get married. He's with her until she dies in 98.
Okay.
He retires the Vivian character in 1995 to take care of Linda as she's dying of cancer. And then later, after Heather, he gets married to, after Linda, he gets married to Heather Mills. Now, here's interesting. His first girlfriend, where is she here? Jane Asher. All right. So you've got pictures of Paul here. That's the real Paul. I think this is, when is this? But let me show you the difference here in the height. So this is March 1966. Look at the height difference. That is supposedly the biological Paul McCartney with his girlfriend of 3 years, his fiancée, Jane Asher. All right. And then, so here's the thing. McCartney dies. He's in this relationship with her. Jane continues on for a while.
Jane continues on with Billy?
Yes, with the stand-in with Billy. And you can see he's 3 inches taller right there. But he eventually meets Linda, and they fall in love, and Jane's still alive, but they go their separate ways. And McCartney's happy with Linda for years until she dies of cancer later.
Wow. I'd be curious what Jane says.
I didn't really go into that for this, but she, from what I read in the Billy story, let me get my video back on here. From what I read in the Billy story, they took to each other.
You shut the share off. Yeah.
Yeah. They took to each other at first, but ultimately the attraction was there. Now, when Billy, here's another interesting thing. Billy is brought in as Paul. He immediately fires all of Paul's caretakers at his house. He fires his butler immediately. So there's a lot. In a lot of these interviews I read, it's an inside, it's a known insider's secret that a lot of these musicians know that's not Paul McCartney.
Mhm.
You know, I've got interviews here. I'm not going to pull them up because how are we doing on time? I think we should probably wrap it up, huh?
We got about 10 minutes.
Okay. So let me see if I got any little things to add here at the end. This is the last of Paul McCartney's double. And this is September 13th, 1966 at the Melody Maker Awards. So biological Paul is dead. Billy has not been fully brought in. The double, this is one of his doubles.
You want to share your screen?
Oh, my bad. Let me do that. Let's share. Okay. So yes, this is his double.
Okay.
So the Beatles have a bunch of doubles, and they say Billy says to this day his other double is still alive. So who really knows? But
yeah, it's super interesting.
It really is. It blew my mind because to me it's like, wow, I can't imagine living as someone else my whole life. You know,
yeah, and it's hard to imagine that plastic surgery would be that good in the 60s, you know?
Well, it wasn't just plastic surgery. It was also prosthetics and stuff.
Okay.
You know, because same with the Vivian character. He was, you know, here's the thing. It's like the CIA and it's like Mission Impossible type stuff. Like they were doing the Mission Impossible show in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
My general understanding of conspiracy technology is if they're showing it to us, they're 30 to 50 years ahead of what they're actually giving us.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And what they can do now with prosthetics and makeup is, I mean, I don't know how deep you want to go, but you know, Biden is a character played by Jim Carrey potentially. But you know, back then, I think here's the thing: it's like the moon landing. You can never pull that off today, and I don't believe they're pulling it off today. With what they've shown us, I'm like, I need that camera going the whole time. I don't want just one little picture, one photo of the Earth at one time, and then 12 hours later, it's the same picture but darker. The clouds haven't even moved. Like you couldn't pull off the moon landing today. I don't think they successoly have.
Yeah, I've been watching it a little bit on HBO. They have a live stream of it, and all that I've seen so far is them in the rocket.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like they have not successfully, with the technology available, especially on like the damn iPhone, these should have the astronauts in the cabin. I want to point that little camera out the window. Let's see what's really out there. Not some staged one or two shots. No. They were claiming to make phone call. Nixon was calling them on the moon in '69. You can't do any better now. We don't have the technology to go back to the moon, is what they say. They don't have the technology to fake going back to the moon, is what it really is, because they can't pull it off with a damn green screen. They need the Disney technology that they don't have anymore. I truly believe that's a possibility. That not only do they not have we can't go there to begin with, they don't have the technology to fake it, because green screen isn't. You know, like look at Mary Poppins and stuff. They were doing things with green screen. They didn't have green screen back then. They were doing it analog. They were doing Mary Poppins, you know, seamlessly. Kubrick with the screens. They can't do that anymore. It doesn't look real. I think they don't have the technology to fake it, is what they don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting, it makes me think of cycles, right? In life, and it makes me think about how, you know, it's interesting that we're talking about this, and the going to the moon is the commonality between now and then, you know. It's kind of like jumping back in time in a sense, you know. It's really interesting. Yeah, I'm really curious about some of this video footage I've been seeing. Like they showed a little bit out of their window. I haven't watched very much, but I saw a clip of a video where in the first 19 seconds there's this what looks like a craft just very quickly going like across the screen down to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. It's interesting that they're doing it live and that they're sharing a lot of this stuff. You know,
I think they're trying to I think, for one thing, I think in '69 they didn't think we were ever gonna they were gonna have to ever explain and have to really have their fakery under this much scrutiny, right? High
Right.
definition internet connectivity and video sharing and editing, you know, better than what they had at your own, you know, in your hand, you know, computer in your hand, stronger than what they sent the people to the moon supposedly with, right? Computing power. They didn't
Yeah.
expect that. They've had to rewrite this narrative. I really think that they don't have the technology to fake it like they used to. The analog technology was somehow better. And if you look at the Russian stuff from the '60s, it's comical. You think our stuff is comical? Look, India stuff in the modern age is comical. It doesn't fly. But to sum up this Paul stuff, the book really clarifies a lot of these things. I didn't feel like I did my best tonight, but I'm just going to sum it up with this. It's a different person. He's taller. He's got different color eyes. He parts his hair differently. I didn't even get to the fact that if you study him playing the bass, he plays the instruments totally different. And that's what I mean. You can compare these things now. You can compare Paul versus Billy. Billy playing yesterday in 1970 on a live show. He's looking down, trying to figure out how to play left-handed, trying to remember. Where Paul McCartney's dancing around, he's not looking around. It's a totally different person.
Yeah.
And, you know, what you can gain from this is you're not being told the truth. Don't take things at face value, that it's meant to hypnotize you. It's meant to sell records. It's meant to move the ball across the goal line in terms of their objectives. For they sold LSD. They sold Eastern spirituality. Huge. The Beatles were huge in opening up meditation, transcendental meditation,
Big time.
yoga, Eastern spirituality. They were huge in so many ways. And I think really, unlike any other band, they helped push that narrative of mind expansion and Eastern spirituality awareness big time, but bigger than anybody else.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. They were huge in the movement.
A huge moment in the culture where the biggest band in the world goes to India. And I think that's why it was so important to keep up the facade that McCartney stayed alive. That not only was he potentially a sacrificial lamb, that he maybe had made the pact with Lennon years ago. They both died for it. You know, Lennon took 20 years. McCartney's was, and McCartney, if you read the book, he's talking like he has a death wish. He knows he's going to die. He has the dreams. He has the premonitions. He's setting himself up for his own death. And the Beatles were ready for it. They couldn't believe it. Oh, we've got to expand our minds. We've got to dig deeper into why he was able to have such premonitions. Like spirituality is a real thing. That was what happened to me. Wow. I meditated and I'm like, wait a minute. There are realms and dimensions and feelings, and there's something bigger than just 3D materialism and, you know, grounded material reality. So let's keep exploring.
Let's keep exploring, man. Yeah, keep your minds open. You know, there's so much that, you know, needs to be questioned. And I really appreciate you coming on, and you took so much time to find all these photos, all these videos, and really dig it into it. And I'm so grateful that you did that, and so that we could share with the audience, man. I'm really excited, and I think that, you know, people can take it as they take it, you know. And for me, the most definitive evidence was the fingerprints in Japan, the DNA
Maternity.
test they did
Yeah.
with his child, and then, you know, some of the obvious things like the eyes and the
Oh, that's
ears.
another thing I didn't even get into. Paul McCartney's he's blind in the right eye. The Billy Shears is blind in one eye.
Oh,
That's
wow.
another way you can tell the difference. The Vivian character, you can see it in McCartney. It's there. I didn't get to that tonight. There's so many things I still. I feel like I failed tonight. Honestly, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I feel like I didn't even get my message across clearly or good enough. But for me, the book really not only did it made me really reconsider one of the longest held conspiracy theories, right there with Kennedy in '63, that Paul is dead. A laughable theory, right? People consider it laughable. Oh, no, he's alive. What are you talking about? No, but he's left-handed genius. No, you can't replace him. No, he's been replaced.
Yeah, no, I think you did great, man. I think you brought so much evidence, and I think that, you know, it was awesome. I think it was awesome. I think it's interesting to talk about, and it's interesting for people to explore, because I learned a lot. You know, I learned a lot of just about the Beatles and all of it, right? Like this was all something new to me. So I'm excited that we got to dive into it and really explore it more.
Awesome. Let me shout out these channels real quick that I got all this information from.
Yeah, let's
First
do
of
it.
all, the book is the Memoirs of Billy Shears. We talked about that. You can get the audio book, buy it. It's not too expensive. It's a great read, long read. But the big sources you're going to want to check out: Mike Williams, Paul is Dead channel, The Sage of Quay. It's the same guy. Mike Williams is really the expert on this. Justice for James, Paul McCartney is another great YouTube channel. I got a lot of this from. I Am Phony is another one, which some people say is a Beatles insider. Really check out I Am a Phony on YouTube.
Okay.
Paul Forever. These are all YouTube channels. Paul Forever, Shadow of a Bass Man, R.I.P. Paul 1996, Now and then one last one, which was a counter to the narrative, which I got a lot of great information on, which is turnmeondeadman.com.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for doing all the research, man, and really diving into it. I really appreciate you. And man, you're always welcome back on the podcast anytime.
Oh, I'm gonna have you on mine when I get it going here in a minute. So
I'm stoked. Yeah, it'll be awesome, man. We got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about, and I really enjoy your energy, and I really enjoy your thoroughness with this. So thank you again.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Until next time, brother. Take care.
You are enlightened. Thank you.